Jeff go? Is he not coming? Right now it says starting soon.
Yeah, everybody can hear you.
We're not private.
Good evening, all. I'm Veteran Crypto, aka Myke, and this is Bullshit and Bourbon. Tonight we have go around the horn. We got Taylor, we got Gary, and we got another Mike. So, Gary, I sent you the link to the YouTube channel. If you want to jump on there, feel free to. It looks like we got Crypto Breezy. We got Nicole Ministator, who is alive and well, feeling good at home. She had to get a little bit of a surgery. And we got Bad Fox so far. So we'll kick it right off. So, what's everybody up to? Myke, what you up to this week?
I think right now my initial focus is on the Dodger game, right? They start in about 15 minutes. So, big Dodger fan, born and raised in LA. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on that. Hopefully we can get to the World Series. And what I would love to see is a repeat of the 1977 World Series with the Yankees and the Dodgers. That would be pretty killer, I think.
Sweet. Yeah. No, it's you got anything coming up this next week interesting that you're getting into?
Just which we can talk about later. I'm just continuing to work on my project. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind youth sports complex here in Salt Lake City, Utah, just south of Salt Lake City in Harriman. So working on that, been doing that for a couple of years, and I guess we could chat that up a little bit later, and I'll
absolutely
give you a little more information.
Definitely want to cover that. It sounds like a really cool opportunity that you guys got going. Taylor, what you been up to this week?
Work, jujitsu, and just reading. That's all I've been doing, really. Writing a lot. That's my other big hobby that I do. I'm a really boring person. I'm a really boring person. Oh, I just got back from visiting grandpa and grandma. They're doing great.
Dude, I'm a piece of shit. I need to get down there and visit grandma and grandpa. I keep telling them I'm gonna, and I keep on freaking letting time go by like I always do.
Yeah, they're doing it. It's a lot harder for you to get there than me. I'm just 2 hours away.
Yeah, but that's no excuse. I'm retired, got no kids. There's no reason why I can't jump on a plane other than I got a cat. I just need to find somebody to watch my cat, or I need to drive down.
Yeah.
Actually, I probably should just do that. I should just jump in the truck and drive down. Then I can stay for as long as I want. You know what? I'm going to do that this winter.
Yeah.
Where are the grandparents, guys?
Tyler, Texas.
That? Oh.
Yeah.
Taylor's down in McKinney, just north of Dallas. And then, our parents are out in, or two of our parents are out in, was it Lake Palestine area?
Yeah. Or Bullard where mom and dad are?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Bullard's
And
just
then
right by Tyler
our
too.
grandma and grandpa are out in Tyler,
But
East Texas.
Michael, you got to practice the art of massive, spontaneous action. It's the best way to live your life. Don't plan anything. Just go do it. Just go wake up one morning.
Dude.
I'm going to just go and visit grandpa and grandma and get in your truck and just go.
I'm the master of that. you know me. I'm like freaking like, what's Michael up to today? You know?
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden there'll just be like an Instagram photo or something of me in another country, or no. It's my problem is I'm trying to be less like that.
No. This is my theory: is that when you do that, the simulation doesn't know what to do with you. Because the simulation has to plan that you're going to behave a certain way. And then when all of a sudden you wake up one morning and don't behave that way, the simulation goes crazy.
Are we back on this alien?
You know what? You can't argue with that logic. You can't argue with that logic. I mean, if you watch The Matrix, it's what happened.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I can tell you, one day I called Myke. I was like, hey, what are you doing? Give me a call back. He calls me back. Or no, he didn't call me back. He sends me pictures of him in the middle of the ocean on a boat. He goes, oh, I'm just chartering a boat over to Italy or something. Like, yeah, go figure.
That sounds spontaneous to me. Yeah.
No, I actually, last night I did Taylor's been telling me forever to share. This is what I was up to this week. Taylor forever has been telling me to share, my adventure building the cabin up here and stuff. I honestly didn't figure too many people would be interested. And I posted on X just a picture of it. Just, somebody was talking about building their dream cabin. I was just like, hey, this is mine. And it went viral. The last time I looked a couple of days ago, it was like 80,000 views.
Yep.
There was like 5 likes and shares. I was just like, holy shit. And so everybody was asking me to, share my experience. So I did a video last night and kind of detailed, and had a bunch of pictures that I took through the thing. And I shared some of those photos, like when I went down and worked on that charter boat for a couple weeks. But we went from Antigua over to Montserrat and hit a couple other islands. Just open ocean sailing. But yeah, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I think I want your life. That sounds pretty awesome.
No, I won't lie. It was. So what you been up to this week, Gary?
A little bit of work, a little bit of play, dabbled with the car a little bit, setting up my bar in the basement, a little poker table. I got my poker table set up, and then of course I get distracted with the wife's goals of get outside and set up Halloween. So
yeah,
we went to Oktoberfest for her birthday. That's
pretty right.
Fun. It was crazy busy. It was the busiest I've ever seen it, ever.
Oh, dude, Utah's getting ridiculous.
It is.
It was nuts.
Where'd you go, Snowbird?
Yeah, we went up to Snowbird, and it was so because of the back surgery, right? I was like, just drop me off up front, I'll be fine. And Jackson, Littlehead, he says, no, you're taking the card out. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so he stopped the car, popped the trunk, pulled out the Jazzy, and he goes, "You're riding this all day." I'm like, "No, I'm not." But I ended up riding it, and it worked out because everybody got out of my way, and any line I got into for a beer or food, the person at the front would walk back to me and say, "No, this is ADA. You don't have to wait. Go to the front." So I just rode my little scooter all the way to the front. I never had to wait in line. And there was.
I'm taking you to Disneyland with me.
Yeah, not Disneyland, like Six Flags. We need to do a bullshit and bourbon, like a Six Flags episode. Take our
with our phone.
Take our token handicap, dude. Take Gary with us.
Michael, what is your X handle? I'm apparently you have a Twitter back in the day that you don't post on anymore.
No, it's a veteran, the number 4 crypto.
Okay. I've been following your one that you never post on, thinking you were that was it. And I'm like, there's nothing on this thing.
Honestly, I think if I remember right, that was the one that got canceled by the old Twitter.
Oh, that's why you stopped posting
with my disinformation or whatever.
Oh, so tell us about that. What happened?
Honestly, I've been canceled off of so many platforms. I forget what happened with that one. Facebook, I got canceled off of. I lost my old YouTube channel. I had one that was called Prep to Survive. It was a survival company that I started, and was doing really well with it. And PayPal shut me off because I was selling gun parts, not guns, but gun parts. Site.
Wow.
And pretty like the next day or two after, YouTube shut me down and no explanation. I tried to appeal it. They said it can't be appealed. It's permanent. Deal with it.
Wow. Last time I checked, even though we're on the outskirts of it, this was America.
I thought, but
all right,
enough about that.
That's cute.
So let's get into our topic for this evening. So what I was wanting to talk about, we're just going to let tonight free flow, is I want to talk about, just to frame the conversation, I want to talk about sports and kind of the history of sports and how it shapes societies and what drives us as humans to compete, not just compete against each other, but push our own personal limits to improve ourselves and to excel and exceed. But I know that Gary and Myke, I know that you guys are really into baseball. Taylor, I know that in high school you played football, you played rugby in college, and you're very into jiu-jitsu now. I really haven't played any organized sports, a little bit of football, but I just did cross country running. And then I've just done like surfing, backcountry skiing, skydiving, rock climbing, stuff like that. So, yeah, let's go ahead and kick this off. Let's just maybe start with like the history of sports, like the games, back in in the old Olympics and stuff. Kind of. Taylor, kick us off.
Well, I'll give a little bit because I know more about the history of jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu started in Japan, where most martial arts systems today kind of derived from.
Started in a Japanese bathhouse?
Yeah. Well, yes. That's where we get the robes from.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The rear naked choke. That's where the rear naked choke came from.
You stop it right now.
Later, when the guys started taking those robes off. So like jiu-jitsu came through and basically martial arts, but what people would know today is really about the 1700s, 1800s. That's when this idea of going to the ground and taking a person to the ground, because jiu-jitsu before was more about throws. And so
like judo.
Yeah, like judo, like sumo, all those type of fighting styles that people are usually familiar with, because it was the samurais and the fighting traditions that came out of Japan. Because Japanese culture was such a warrior culture, and so much of the fighting history comes from there. But then the idea of choking people as a way to win the fight instead of just bashing their brains in and hoping to win that way. So that became kind of like the idea, but really this idea that you pin someone to the ground is where you're going to win a fight, and controlling them on the ground or taking it to the ground is when it went to Brazil, and the Gracie family took it. Hilo Gracie, he was a small guy, and he felt like the only way he could really compete with in jiu-jitsu or fighting was this idea that he takes someone to the ground and control them on the ground. Because if you're a smaller guy and you're in a fight, a bigger guy has all the power to come at you and take you out. You can be a great boxer or kickboxer or fighter, but if a man much larger than you gets enough speed and momentum and hits you, you're out. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of became very popular and because it was this idea, but more so it became popular because of the structure that they created, which was like they created these environments for guys to get together, and they developed a system where you could compete but not get injured. That's always been the problem with like wrestling. Wrestling never could take off as a sport that adults do because it's so much more violent. Like wrestlers are way better fighters because of how much strength, power, and everything that you have to do wrestling. But once you become an adult, you can't do it without getting seriously injured. Like it's so hard. So jiu-jitsu came about, and it's interesting because the word jiu-jitsu means gentle action. And it's this idea that you're competing.
Stop resisting. I'm giving you gentle action.
I have taken your back.
I'm gently taking your back and choking you.
Now I'm going to choke you out. But it's this idea that you can tap and everything stops. And then you can start over. So it gained so much kind of momentum in Brazil that when it came out and went out throughout the rest of the world, it's just exploded everywhere.
I know in Hoist, I mean, he's the one that really made it blow up back in the day, but I think everyone was just so impressed with how he just worked like much larger people. I think he was like 180, 190 or something.
Yeah.
And he was working guys that were like 300 pounds.
Yeah, because that's when the UFC came about, and that's what really exploded it in America, was all of a sudden this dude wearing some robe shows up and is like taking guys 3 times his size to the ground and then choking them out, and people were just blown away. And it took about 2-3 years for the other people to figure it out to compete, because that's how it really just took off.
What he did every time was he'd take the back, he'd use his gi and choke. That was like his one move, every time, but nobody could defend against it.
Yeah, because it was so foreign to people what he was doing, and then now really in the UFC was proving to be probably the best fighting style is Samba. That's a form of jiu-jitsu that went to Russia, and of course Russians made it like 10 times. Like they took wrestling, they took jiu-jitsu, and they combined it into a sport. And you get all these Russian guys coming in and just destroying people in the UFC, and it's pretty impressive to watch that system. But right now, jiu-jitsu is coming a harder sport to watch because everybody's found out that leg locks are the way that you can win a fight, and just attack someone's leg. And so I have a hard time watching jiu-jitsu as a sport because it's just everybody attacking each other's legs and really not turning into a fight. Where UFC is a lot more entertaining to watch because they make incentives of, hey, people want to watch you knock each other out. So if you're going to go to the ground and wrestle, people aren't going to, we're not going to give you contracts in this sport. So UFC is still the most entertaining, mixed martial arts that you're doing standing, punching, kicking, all that stuff. But if you were to say what is the best fighting style right now, I think it's Samba. I think Samba is proving to.
And if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right, that's a Russian martial art because they're Russian special forces. That's what they learn.
Yeah, it's this mix of jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and also striking. But when we have Samba guys that come into the gym, man, it is so hard to deal with them because they're just go hard 100%. They took the gentle out of jiu-jitsu and said, no, we're not doing that anymore. And it's just like,
hey, Myke and Gary, you can unmute your mic whenever you want. Myke, you're there was something with your mic that it sounded like somebody was crumpling paper. So
A little bit of feedback.
I was searching for who that was coming from.
Hey, so in the comments, I've got Nicole. Nicole, she was saying that she's a volleyball girl. Look over my shoulder.
Well, Bad Fox was saying that she did 22 years of Taekwondo and competed. And then, Nicole did softball and volleyball.
Yep.
And then someone said jiu-jitsu's so expensive. That is absolutely true, because it's not just you're paying that monthly fee. It's all the damn injuries that you get that you have to go to the freaking doctor for. Like, I broke my finger this year. I've pulled my groin. Like, I've done like so many things. My kid's broke his ankle because the Samba guy in our gym showed up and broke my kid's ankle. And then he got his ass kicked by our professor because because he's like, you come to the gym and break a teenager's ankle. That's not.
Yeah, you need to fucking, when you're training, you got to have some restraint. You can't go all out all the time.
Yeah,
it depends on the gym you go to. It depends on the gym you go to.
Yeah, it does.
Well, it's just you have to know who you're fighting. If you're a grown man, you're fighting a younger dude. Granted, my nephew, the kid's a beast. He freaking, he's 100% all. He's full throttle all the time.
Yeah, my boys they're scary because they take grown men and beat the crap out of them that are trained fighters themselves. So, and they're only 14 and 16 right now.
Yes,
wow.
Bad Fox. I am a big fan of Krav Maga, simply for the combat aspect, not necessarily for like competing and things like that. Most of the stuff that I like using is stuff that I would use like in a life or death or a combat situation, not necessarily a street fight. But yeah, Krav Maga is, if you learn from the right people, is very, very effective.
I would challenge that if you are willing to use it in combat, it's gonna work in a street fight.
Yeah, the problem is you could potentially seriously maim or kill somebody. Krav Maga is not something where you're submitting people, or it's not that type of martial art. It's it's Israeli based. Their military uses it, and it's just down and dirty, eye gouges and fish hooking, and it's very, very brutal.
Do you remember?
Yeah, but I think if you're holding a gun to my head, I don't care if I'm gonna maim or member.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But if you're at a bar and somebody hits on your wife, you don't want to like gouge their eye out.
So,
you might want to throat punch them, but you don't want to gouge their eye out.
Wait, hold on. Let me make a note on that. Hold on. Don't gouge someone's eye out. Okay,
Myke,
got it.
What was it? There was some in the United States. There was something kind of like that, a fighting system. Do you know what it was called? Maybe any one of you guys. I don't know if there was a fighting system that was really popular, like the 1800s in America. That was like you fish hooked people. You did all
bare knuckle boxing.
So Kempo teaches some of that.
Maybe
That's true.
It's not their priority, but they teach a bit of that. And I could bring a national champion down and teach you about Kempo. She's upstairs.
Oh wow.
Oh, your wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with his wife. She'd fight.
No. No. It's yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, and I'm sorry. That works too.
Yeah.
That's a necessity. Absolutely.
So I want to get into baseball because I know that two of you guys are very much into it, and I want to spend a good amount of time on it. But first, I want to touch on some. Well, actually, let me throw up this video real quick. This kind of shows. It's not sports, but it shows what humans can accomplish when they push their limits, and when they're not afraid to get outside the norm and follow the pack. So let me show this real quick.
So we don't have to necessarily focus on baseball, but
Are you popping something up on the screen, Mike?
What's that?
Are you-
Hold on. Let me do the presentation.
And ignite 13 of those Raptor engines, and this view is incredible right now.
also Elon.
Is that a
You
cigar?
can see how fast
It's
this
just
vehicle
insane.
is moving
It's a cigar.
on the left-hand side.
Landing burn, 13 ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now
Look at that.
That's unbelievable.
Freaking catches a rocket. And I mean, how cool is that? I mean, and that was that Starship. That wasn't a small rocket. I mean, that thing is just the Starship portion is as big as the space shuttle with the external booster and the two smaller boosters on it. So I mean, that thing is massive. That's the one that he plans on taking to Mars. And the fact that they can launch those things and recover them and repurpose them, and reuse them, for another launch. I mean, it's just insane. NASA used to let them plunge into the ocean, and they built whole new ones.
That it truly is one of the most incredible things to realize. Like it's hard because we're sitting here. It's like my friend that went there and saw how big they are. He goes, "Huge! It will blow your mind how big that thing is."
It's insane.
And they catch it like that.
Yeah, and then you got this. You got these Optimus. These real quick.
The advanced motors, gearboxes, the
Oh,
software, the AI inference computer.
Well, here's the bang
It all
bus.
actually applies to
that's
a
the new van
humanoid
that holds
robot.
20 people.
It's the same techniques.
The robotic bang bus.
It's just a robot with arms and legs instead of a robot with wheels.
Wow. Wow.
And we've made a lot of progress with the Optimus. And as you can see, we started up with someone in a robot suit, sort of down, and then we've progressed dramatically year after year. So if you extrapolate this, you're really going to have something spectacular, something that anyone could own.
I mean, that's enough of that. But I mean, it's just insane. I mean, Elon Musk, I mean, just the stuff that he's doing is, and we've talked about this before on the show, but people that are wired to push limits, people that are wired to, excel and think outside the box, and, they don't just move with the pack. And that's kind of what sports teaches is, it almost like jujitsu. It's like a gentle competition of trying to, best your opponent to where, you are constantly improving yourself, and in kind, you are helping somebody else improve. And I think that's a lot of what sports teaches and instills in people, all kinds of sports. Baseball, football, martial arts, it teaches discipline, physical fitness. It wires the brain to have, the drive to constantly be finding ways to improve and be better in sports than your opponent. And it's almost like it feeds a deep desire or need in humans. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It does. I think there's an important piece that's not being missed, but hasn't been mentioned yet. That even with the rockets, the spaceships, baseball, sport, any sport that you have, one key element is teamwork.
Yeah, so that's actually a great point, because Elon Musk said this about Tesla, and he says the thing about what people they see and they associate me as the one that has done all these things. He goes, it isn't me that has done all these things. It is the corporation. It is all the people working towards these goals, and we accomplish these great things. And that's the great thing that you learn from team sports, is you learn how to work with other players in achieving a goal. You know, that's what I learned from football and rugby, was like, you know, if every person that's out there is working hard towards that goal, one mistake can cost the whole team the game.
It can.
Well,
It does.
but the thing is, you know, Elon really is like the coach, you know, where he builds successful teams. He seeks out, you know, these, you know, otherwise I would think would be obscure people that, you know, in the improper setting, you know, might not accomplish these great things because of, uh, you know, just because of lack of funding or lack of vision. And he just puts them in these, you know, teams, and they do these amazing things. I mean, it's just insane. But
So it's
and that's a good
it's
segue. Oh, go ahead.
interesting. Sorry, guys. It's
No,
interesting
go
the
ahead, Mike.
fact that, and I want to speak to this a little bit, that my oldest son, has a physics degree, and you know, it's interesting how once upon a time back in the day, NASA was the place to be, like you guys said, right? They were the ones, they were the innovators. Nobody wants to work for NASA anymore. They want to work for SpaceX and Tesla. And you know, that's all my son used to talk about when he was getting his degree was, I got to be in the top 1% because that's what Elon looks for, because I want to work for SpaceX. And I think that dynamic is really interesting in the fact that you're right. I mean, we were talking earlier before we went on air about, you know, Elon Musk just being on this whole different level than intellectually than pretty much anyone else. And the teams that he puts together are created by his vision, right? And then the others need to structure it, carry it out, do their mathematical equations, do their thing, whatever. But I don't know math. I'm a baseball guy.
Yeah, well, but I think that's the point. Is that really the secret to being great? Like, to be a great coach, it's really like it's putting the right people together. It's being a recruiter. Like, you look at football, like college football, the best teams are the guys that are the best recruiters, because they go out there and they get the right talent and they put it all together and they put it on the field. But it's just not finding the guys who are the best. It's finding the best people who can work with other people.
Right. And then we also have to be a motivator too, right? As you know, I know from owning a DBAT, and Gary can attest to this, that, and Gary being a coach and an instructor as well, that you can't tear these kids down. You have to build them up, even when you're trying to tear them down and get them into new fundamentals, new habits, right? You always have to put a positive spin on things, and it's difficult. It is.
Yeah.
Well, we touched on that, Mike, when me and you were just talking before the show. I learned a valuable lesson. Taylor, you might have been too young, but Dad put me in baseball, and I sucked. And the coach put me in right field, and if I was lucky, and I couldn't hit, I could, you know, barely throw, couldn't catch for shit, and you know, wouldn't get in front of the ball when it was coming at me. I'd want to stand to the side because I didn't want to get hit by it, and I sucked. And if they would have had participation trophies back in the day, I would have thought that I was all right and probably would have kept doing it. But really quickly, I learned I suck at this. I need to find something else because this isn't my thing, and it's important. You know, I mean, that's another thing. You know, a good aspect of sports is it's a very blunt teacher. Is, you know, either you're really good at it, and Taylor, I mean, I don't know how much of this that you want to share, but you know, when you played football, I mean, do you want to, you know, share your experience with that and with your coach and kind of the stuff that, you know, ways that you use as an example?
Yeah, like I sucked. So like I'm naturally strong but super slow, which is not a very good combination for football. Like football,
we'll clarify physically slow, because mentally slow, that's not possible. You're a lawyer, so
no. So physically, I was physically slow. I've always I just never have had really good speed, and really football is not a sport based upon skill at all. Like, it is genetic ability. You look at every guy in the NFL, they're genetic freaks. Like, it's not. I mean, you can take guys that have never played football, and in 2 years they can be going pro. Other sports, you just can't do that. So football is just like this, like, one thing. But my experience of going through it was I wanted to be good so bad at it. Genetically, I didn't have it, so I had to work my butt off on what I could get good at. And at the end of the day, I worked my butt off to try to get to a point that I could play, and I wasn't big enough and I wasn't fast enough in it. And I
remember Dad telling me that the coach actually told him that he wished that the guys that had the talent had half the heart. He called you Rudy because he was like, I wish they had half the heart that Taylor has and the drive that he has, because they have all the talent, but none of the drive. Taylor has all the drive and none of the talent.
Yeah. Which in life was the greatest thing for me, because what ended up happening is I developed the traits of going, okay, I got to work hard because nothing's going to be handed to me. Whereas other kids, when they're young, that are super talented, they don't develop that, and then you eventually run into the wall. Like, there's a level when you're moving up. There eventually everybody has your genetic abilities.
Yeah.
So it's who has the work ethic and who has the abilities to take themselves to the next level. And
there's a lot to be said about today's sports world. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. It has become, you get these under income families, homes, like below poverty level, that these kids would destroy a D1 athlete, but they don't have the context. They don't have the political coach that is willing to reach out. So you could have all the talent in the world, but right now, if you don't have the context or the means to reach out to the different schools or programs, you may not reach it, and you're stuck.
Yeah. No, and it's, and it's, I don't know. It's definitely, I actually ran into this when I was a military recruiter. I was at a high school.
My recruiter.
There was there was this hot shot kid, and I guess he was really good at baseball. And I was trying to convey to him that I'm like, there is like 1% of 1%, and this will be a good segue into you guys talking about baseball. I said, there's 1% of 1%. You have a better chance of winning the lottery than getting a space in Major League Baseball.
You do. And
I guess he was very talented. He was, very cocky, of course. And he was like, well, and I got an uncle that I think it was with the A's or with some major league team that gave him an in. And I was like, and that might work out for you. However, that might get you a tryout. But it all comes down to money. Is they see you as how much money are you going to be able to make, how much of a draw, and how much of a contribution are you going to be to the team to take them to the championships. It doesn't matter who your uncle is. Are you good enough that you're willing to bet your whole future on that you're going to make it to the Major League Baseball? And I think I actually gave him pause for a minute, which I was glad. I didn't end up enlisting him. I wasn't trying. I was just trying to plant that seed that you might want to cultivate other options.
So you do, right? And I can speak to that, as well as someone who was scouted straight out of high school by the Chicago Cubs. I was a California boy, so we played ball 24/7, 365, and I was also a gymnast. But I got to spring training, and I'm old, right? I'm back in the
so you do pitch and hit.
So,
Pitch and receive.
yeah, I don't pitch, just hit. So I'm okay. Now you've thrown me for a loop. But anyway, so I did. I got scouted straight out of high school as a middle infielder, shortstop, second base, and that was for the Cubs. And that was back in 1988, and that's when Ryan Sandberg and Dawson had just Sandberg was already a Cub, but Dawson had just gotten signed. I believe it was the year before, and it's brutal. I mean, I was the number one shortstop in California at the time, and I couldn't cut the mustard. I'm 5'0" nothing. I was really good at what I did, but I ultimately after spring training, after hearing from Sandberg and Dawson, you're never gonna start, you're never gonna beat us. I mean, it's competitive, right? And you got to take that mental abuse as well. And there's a big mental side to I think every sport, not just baseball. But you really have to be mentally strong. And at the end of the day, I was called in and said, Myke, we're looking for somebody who's at least 5'8". You're awesome, but we're gonna cut you.
So what is the height range for a good baseball player?
Now it's 6 foot plus.
Anything over 6.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So baseball has the same standards as most women out there. You have to make 6 figures. You got to be over 6 foot. You have 6-pack abs.
Yes, everything's coming up 6s. Yeah, and it's it's not true. I mean, even at 54, Gary will tell you this. I can still play ball. I mean, I can still compete. I love to compete. And it was kind of cool for me to go. Like I was telling Myke earlier, I went to the Dodger Fantasy Camp this year at the stadium, and Steve Sachs was my coach, and I still talk to him. He still calls me, wants me to come back to camp in January. And, that's a good feeling for me, because when Steve Sachs, the second baseman, is telling you when I'm out there, he goes, you know what, at 54, you are still getting that ball out of your glove, and you are still running faster than some of these 30-year-old kids that are, here in camp.
Yeah,
so,
he just watch you the week following that camp. I get to see it.
You get to see it, yeah.
The knees, the pain, the ice.
Yeah. Gary saw the swollen knee and the bad shoulder and the holy shit, what have I just done to myself? But we hide that during camp. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Well, hey, Gary and Myke, I really want to hear about this project you have going on. And Crypto Breezy in the chat, he says he has a coworker that is struggling financially, as a lot of people are, in this economy, and he can't afford to let his kids play on travel teams to get better. I'm not, to be honest, I won't pretend like I know. I mean, I know what traveling is, but I don't know enough about baseball and kids teams and stuff. I'm guessing that means that they can't fully participate on a baseball team and travel with the team. Do you have any pointers for anybody that, because I know that when me and Taylor were kids, our mom, we were poor as shit. The reason I didn't play a lot of organized sports is we couldn't afford it.
We get that a lot, and I get that a lot at DBAT. Gary gets that a lot. We hear that a lot. Like, if you travel teams, for those of you who don't know, are kind of the elite version of rec ball. Okay, so rec is kind of where you start. So you start at the city level. They all have recreation teams. Okay, so that's where you start. That's where you start to build your skills from 7 on. A lot of these rec clubs, a lot of these cities even have like wiffle ball, and they have t-ball for the little ones from like 5 to 7, right? And then you kind of graduate from there to machine ball, coach pitch, and then you work your way up. So what he's talking about is the elite clubs and travel teams, as Gary can attest to, are fairly expensive. It can be like $1,200 to $2,400 for a season, because what they do is they travel. And when they talk about travel, they go to compete in tournaments, like in different places. Like here, we'll go, to Southern Utah. We'll go to Vegas. We'll go to Mesquite. They'll go to California. Some will go to Florida. So you travel around. and it's expensive. The family goes, you got to pay for hotels, you got to pay for all these other things besides just the tournament and, what that costs and your equipment and all of that. So it is, and it's an expensive proposition. Now, if you want the kids to get better, you've also got to have lessons, outside of the coach. You've got to have other instructors depending on what the discipline is: pitching, catching, outfield, infield. And it is. I mean, it's, like Taylor was saying earlier, it gets expensive for any sport you play. Here, the girls do dance or they do softball, and it's expensive. So I guess the advice I can give is,
I know Taylor's given the north-south on that one, with jujitsu and all of his kids, because him and his wife and his 4 boys and his daughter all do jujitsu, and they travel and do it.
All 7 of us do it, and we go do like tournaments all. I mean, we competed in Ireland, and so like,
wow,
we went out there, and so like it was. Right now, we do that as a vacation too, so it's like a combination. But man, it costs a fortune to do those tournaments all the time.
And it does, and Gary and I hear it every day, and especially in this economy, it's rough.
What would be some tips that you could give somebody? Because it sounds like he's, like Gary has twin boys that want to play ball, and he just can't afford it. I mean, is there any kind of programs that might be out there, or?
Yeah, so there's a couple different programs that I utilized in raising the boys. Little Head didn't play baseball at all. It just never interested him.
Damn Little Head.
But Big Head.
And just so everyone out there knows, I named him Little Head and Big Head when I met Gary like 20 years ago, and I recruited him into the military. I was sitting on his couch talking to him and his wife, and his boys were just tiny. I mean, they were like maybe 2 or 3 years old. Twin boys, identical twins. And I couldn't remember their names because I'm terrible at names. And one had a little head, one had a big head. And so I named them Little Head and Big Head. And it stuck.
Yeah. Big Head and Little
They'd
Head.
probably whoop my ass now if I called them that, but
no. So what I would give, the advice that I would give is you reach out to the schools, reach out to the recs. If you get your child into a rec ball situation, pay attention to different coaches, find out who kind of seems to know the most, and approach them and try and get some one-on-one lessons, because those rec coaches don't charge. Outside of that, if they're in high school, reach out to the high school coach and say, you need a little bit more work. What can I do? What kind, can I fund a banner for your school, which is going to be significantly less than one of these comp teams, and just work with them a little bit more. It's that personal aspect of just reaching out and talking to the coaches to try and get a little extra help if you don't have the funding to do so. I was fortunate enough to.
Breezy, I mean, is this? You think this might help your buddy at all, or you can keep talking?
Yeah, so he's going to respond on the text. The hard part, Myke was saying, $1,200 to $2,500 a year to play competition baseball. I had to kind of set back and open my eyes a little bit, because holy crap, if I would have paid $1,200 to $2,500 a year for baseball, I would be a happy guy right now. Because no,
it's true. It's true. And then
just for the one sport of baseball, 1 year, 12 years old, we spent over $10,000 just for him to play in one tournament.
Wow.
Damn.
Just one.
Yeah. I mean, and look at it from the facility side, the DBAT side, we get, for non-members, we get $80 for an hour lesson. And most of these kids come in 2-3 times a week, right? I mean, it's like Gary said, it can drain you, and we hear it from parents all the time. So
well, I think we lost him.
That's all right. Hey, since we lost him real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to Crypto Breezy. Dude, that's awesome. If you were able to help your buddy out and help him pay for it, to, help his kids out through high school and playing and help develop them, that's really, really cool. That's really cool of you. Good on you, man.
Also, your kid's not going to go professional, so we're going to put things in perspective here. All right, let's get.
Well, hey, dude, maybe they're the one. Maybe they'll hit that kid is that 1% of 1% that's going to be the next Babe Ruth.
Yeah,
but the thing is, if you're gonna put your kids through these sports and you're willing to spend that kind of money, you need to have that realistic expectation of you're not going pro.
Well, it's one thing if you have the means, and it's just like, they enjoy it, cool, make it rain. It's another thing if you're strapped for cash and you're doing it just because you're trying to make your kid feel good about themselves or something like that.
But if they're that
mine and Taylor's dad. Well, you need to be like mine and Taylor's dad, and be honest with your kid and just be like, you know what, Myke, you suck at baseball. I'm not paying for this anymore.
You can go get a job and then pay for yourself.
You can go get a job. You can throw newspapers. If you want to do this.
Well,
you can
I had to do that in fundraisers all the time.
Yeah,
But the third thing is, at least what I saw, like the kids that were really, really good and didn't have enough money, the other players' family members would figure out a way for that kid to get on the team.
I was just about to comment on that.
All right, go over that. Explain that.
So my son has been so good at baseball that we couldn't afford that $10,000 trip. I'll tell you right now, that did not come out of my pocket. We did fundraisers. We did, family, the GoFundMe thing. We did all sorts of things just to get him to this tournament, so we had that experience, right? Just because you don't have the money to send them to these big tournaments doesn't mean they can't continue to progress and be as good as the rest. And the goal that every single child should have in their brain and set an expectation is, can it get me to college? Can I at least apply my sport to get a degree so I have a future? If the MLB comes, the NFL comes, the NBA comes, okay, so be it. But that's not your goal. Your goal is get to college, apply your sport to get a degree, and be successful.
Yeah, because if you can get the scholarship, it's going to be worth every penny that you can put into your kid. But number two, especially for football right now and basketball, NIL money, some of those kids are making more than pros are right now playing college, football and basketball. So, it's like, it might be a little investment. If your kid is really, really good, you got to find a way to get them in, because if they get there, there's so much money now and that's being thrown at these kids. All
right, you know what? Crypto Breezy, this is exactly what you're talking about.
Oh, here we go. Politics and sports.
Crypto Breezy. How do you feel about politics in high school sports and how it affects kids' progression in sports? Actually, here, let's do this. There it is. How do you feel about politics and high school sports affect kids' progression in sports?
You pulling up a video, right?
No. Can you guys see it? I pulled up his comment.
Yeah. That's just his comment.
So I have a pretty good answer on this. My son dealt with this, and if you're watching and he went to your school, suck it up.
How do I unpin it?
But politics,
here we go.
The daddy ball, and it exists in every sport, not just baseball. The daddy ball, the parents that can't afford the ultimate dream for their kid, they dump money into the school, and the parents that can't afford all that, their kid doesn't play, even though they have twice the talent. If you're, let's see, how do I put this without pissing everybody off? If you're not of the right religious mindset, living in Utah, it may affect your kids' playtime.
Dude, I ran into that in the military there. If you're not the right denomination, you're going to get E6 or E7, before you retire. That's about it.
I'm an E7, and I'm going to retire as an E7. That's all I'll say about that.
You know, that's exactly how it works. I accepted that well before my retirement, but I digress.
But to answer the question about how do you feel about politics and sports, it in its in a sense, it doesn't matter how we feel about politics and sports because it's going to exist. It has existed for at least 50 years since I've been alive. It's always going to exist. It's about managing the different aspects of the politics, and you can't really answer the question because it's a different dynamic in Minnesota and Utah and California, Florida.
It varies.
So you really can't answer that question.
There's a great book that you need to read. It's called Ego is the Enemy.
Ooh,
Yes.
good one.
Yes.
Yeah. That it's the reality that you're going to face because it won't be in just sports. It's going to be any job that is large corporation is people who know how to play the politics are going to get put in positions above you. It's just the reality of life because large organizations.
I accepted it.
Yeah.
In the military, I accepted. I either had to kiss ass, and I would get E8 or E9 or something like that and retire, or I could not kiss ass and retire as an E7. And my pride, my ego, said, "I'm not kissing ass. I'm going to look out for my troops, and I'm going to do the right thing. If that's not enough, then I'll retire as an E7."
Yeah.
Is that good or bad? You be the judge, but the way that I'm wired is I just have to do the right thing, or what I feel is right, which for me, again, was taking care of my troops.
Yeah, and it's far better way to live your life in the context of you're going to do it, like be who you want to be with the realization that life is not fair and you're going to run into it no matter what you go or what you do. I mean, I see it in courtrooms where, certain lawyers, because they donate to political campaigns, get certain rulings from certain judges. And the reality is that judge gets his job based upon an election. And, the hand that feeds him is that attorney. And so I don't particularly play that
game. Makes the world go round, brother.
Yeah. And so it's just a part of life. And I think in sports, it's such a good thing for your kid to experience at a young age. Because I had it happen one time and dad said the best thing to me. And it was like, son, I'm going to be honest with you. His dad coaches. His dad puts in the time to be there at every one of those practices, every one of those games. He's there for his son to play, not for you to play. And it's like, you may be better than him, but I'm not there. So his son deserves to be the one that plays because he's the one coaching the team. And at that point, I realized, like, even though I didn't like it, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, his dad is showing up to coach the team, not to watch me play his son's position. It's like, yeah. And it made perfect sense to me, and I was okay with it after that. And actually, I just changed positions. I was like, oh, well, change your position.
Sir, I'm sorry. I think I cut you off, Taylor. You were talking about the book, Leave Your Ego Behind, was it?
No, ego is the enemy.
Ego is the enemy.
Ego is the enemy. Crypto Breezy says that he has the book. Please expound on that before I so rudely cut you off.
Oh, the book. So Ryan Holiday, you might the Obstacle is the Way is his other really famous book that he has. You'll love it because it's about ego is the enemy. It's about Stoic philosophy. So he takes Stoic sayings and then he just goes through. I can't really remember the story about the military guy, but he was somebody. Maybe you guys remember this. He was somebody that was involved in aviation and like for the Air Force. He was the brain basically of all like modern combat or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he never got credit for it. He never got moved up in the military. All the generals and everybody took all the credit for his designs and everything. And they
Sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Shit hits right here.
You're like, I'm going to get the book right now. Like,
I already took a note. I already took a note on my cigar.com freaking flyer that I got with my last cigars.
Yeah, you'll love that story, but you're just like just reading it just makes you so upset. But his attitude towards it was oh well, this is how the world is. And he didn't care. He went to work every day going, I am going to be the best I can be, and I don't care what the world sees in me.
Yeah, it's already affected Crypto Breezy. He just bought the book.
Yeah. Well, man, we're selling somebody else's book.
The piece that I found in it by living with that mindset is just by doing what I feel is right and making sure that my words match my actions, things like that. I would like to think that I was a good example of, and not to say that I was a perfect leader, but that's what I think a good leader is. And this goes back to sports and team sports and stuff like that, is being having enough ego to where you know where your strengths are and being able to push those, but also being humble enough to understand your weaknesses and where your teammates fill those voids to where you as a team become almost like the Spartans, that wall on that movie 300 where they lock shields and they work together. By working together, you're able to win the battle. Whereas if it's a bunch of cats that you're trying to herd and you're not working as a unit, then they find the chinks in your armor. Is that I'm kind of buzzed. Is that making any sense?
Yeah. So I talk about this with my partner in so I own a title company and we have to compete against big title companies, which are corporations.
Your partner?
Yeah, my business partner. It's a female, all right. So it's not gay, all right.
It's not gay.
I didn't know that. So it's always a concern. Well, they're buying the business. They're going to come in and they're going to put us out of business. And I go, so they put us out of business. Oh, well, we move on. We do what we need to do. But I go, the key is to understand if you know how to work hard and you know your craft, you will never, ever go without. So the focus always should just be on ourselves. Oh, wait. Okay, I got to read the question.
Yeah, it's directly to you. So,
been at a law office and once look at applying for a different law office. Things keeps him. I promise him in retirement. They're selling him the business. Oh, well, here's my biggest thing. If people do not put something in writing, then it means nothing.
It doesn't exist.
So,
Amen.
So he needs to walk in that office, and I'll tell you, because I have a good buddy. He sat for 15 years waiting for this. He's like almost 90 now, attorney to retire, because he says, I'm going to retire. I'm about to retire. And he was going to hand over his whole book of business. The guy's still working the book of business. And he waited 15. He finally just packed up and moved to Utah because he's like, this guy's never going to retire. So he needs to walk into him and be like, I need it in writing. And the actual date that you're going to sell this to me on. Unwilling to do it, then
or needs to decide what his next move is.
Yeah,
I would actually one up that and say, do what Taylor just said, but have in mind, plan out in your head. If obviously, if they say, cool, let's do this, awesome. But if they don't, what is your next move? Because you need to be able to make a decision from a position of power. So you need to, understand that if they, say, yeah, we're going to put it in writing, we're going to make this happen, cool. But if not, what do you plan on doing? Because you on the spot, you need to be like, all right, well, you're not willing to put it in writing. This is what I'm going to do, and you need to be willing to follow through with it.
Yeah, but the laugh was not for you; it was for the comment.
Oh, what was the comment? Buckeye. Buckeye. Thank you.
Fuck, all right.
Well, let's. I want to hear about this project that Gary and Myke have going on.
Oh, yeah.
Which one of you wants to take the lead on that?
I'll let Myke take the lead on that. He is the boss.
Okay. It's really exciting, guys. It's as everybody knows, we have snow here in Utah. So I opened the DBAT, which is a national franchise. They're out of Dallas, Texas. Taylor, you may even know of them. There's like 130 something in Texas and 185 nationwide, 6 in China. So DBAT is kind of the premier baseball and softball indoor training facility throughout the nation. But I kind of always had this vision 6 years ago when I opened, really kind of put it into effect 2 years ago. What we're looking to do, since we have snow here, and like we were talking about travel ball earlier and how people have to travel to southern Utah, they have to go to California, Vegas, whatever. What we are doing is we're opening, in essence, a bigger DBAT facility. Ours is 18,000 square foot now. This one will be about 30,000 square foot. But kind of the big deal of this is we are going to do 2 college size, high school size fields under a dome. So we can play in the winter and we can, do those things. We can have leagues.
Where are you guys doing this at?
So it's just south of Salt Lake in Harriman, Utah. So we're about 25
So
minutes.
it, near where the soccer one is at, there at Point of the Mountain.
Yep.
It's a little bit north of the Monarch soccer, but it's going to be
about 6 miles. Yep.
Half a mile, quarter mile, kitty corner from the new B Stadium.
Near the NSA building that monitors all of our internet and cell phone traffic.
You stop it right now.
I wish I was on my phone, Myke, because I live in Lehi, Utah. Literally, you can go in my backyard and see the fucking NSA buildings from my backyard.
Yeah.
So watch what we're saying. Fuck. So yeah, we're building this one-of-a-kind youth sports complex. And, I hate to get back to the Dodger fantasy camp, but I learned some things while I was there as far as having trainers on site and like a room where trainers could tape you up and tend to injuries and ice baths and things like this. And just kind of having the whole pro experience, if you will, for these kids. And I think that's kind of what we're after. So it's really going to be not just a one-of-a-kind thing in Utah. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind thing really in North America.
That's awesome.
All joking aside, and honestly, I know in Utah with how much influx of people, like 10 years ago is when I left Utah. And it was exploding with, especially the tech, that Silicon Slopes where Adobe moved in and Microsoft moved in. And, house prices got ridiculous. I had that huge monstrosity of a house that I had built for $274,000. I looked at it the other day. It's almost $1 million. It's ridiculous. Just the explosion of people there. So I can only imagine what, the success of something like that would do there, because everyone there, like even before the influx of people, everyone in Utah, soccer, sports, all that stuff, dance, there's that dance academy that's at the Point of the Mountain as well for young ladies. It's just a ton of that stuff there.
There is. And, there's a need. We don't have enough fields. We don't have, enough places for these kids to play. It's just kind of me thinking outside the box from a business perspective at the time of, we do great. We have great revenue during the winter when kids are ramping up to their spring season. And then it kind of tapers off at the end of summer and October. Kids will go play basketball. Kids will go play football. Great. They're multi-sport athletes. I encourage that. But, what can we do was always my thought as a business person, not just a baseball, softball person, but what can we do for the community? And, as a business, I'm a for-profit, right? I'm always looking for revenue and new sources of revenue. What can we do to, help the community and, generate more revenue? And the answer was always, you got to have fields. You got to have fields. And then to put those under a dome to where these kids don't have to travel necessarily and do these things. And we can bring in other people and, do these tournaments under these domes during the winter. is an amazing thing. And the city of Harriman has been so great about this and wanting this for the community. And what's going to even be, even nicer is they're building a couple of hotels right, within
walking distance.
Yeah, really a couple 100 feet of where we're going to be. So, you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay in these hotels. You can walk over to DBAC, come in the Dome, play your games, do your thing, go back to your hotels. There's restaurants. There's all kinds of stuff in this area. So it's really going to be an incredible thing for these kids in the community.
Well, too bad Jeff wasn't here. Jeff opened up Reddick, that usually is on the show. He opened up one of the largest urban airs in Salt Lake City.
What's that?
It's like an indoor play place. Like it was massive. He opened it up the week before COVID hit.
What was it? The play place for the man cave that we showed?
Exactly. It was. He opened it up the week before, and they basically, he goes. He went through everything, but they basically went bankrupt because they.
Oh, dude!
A year and a half of not being able to run their business, and then finally, when they opened it up, they had accumulated so much back debt.
Bottomless, a mountain of cash. You can't weather that storm.
No.
Yeah, it was like $250,000 a month rent or something like that. It was ridiculous because it was such a huge facility.
Oh, shit!
And they're just like, how unlucky can you possibly be?
It was detrimental, especially to new places like that. Like even up in Ogden, or not Ogden, but it was Clearfield, which is about 50 minutes north of here, right off the 15 freeway, prime spot. They took one of those Taipan, places, and they changed it into one of those places where they had escape rooms, go-kart track, all those things. And they did, Taylor, they opened up right at that time. It never opened.
Yep.
I'll tell you that it's weird. It's, Utah it was such an amazing place to grow up, like off and on. I grew up there. Taylor grew up there quite a bit. And Taylor remembers. Like I remember when Footloose, the first one with Kevin Bacon, was made there. There wasn't even an exit in Lehigh. Like the roller mills, that's in the movie. Thing, but where all that Silicon Slopes is with Adobe and just all those tech companies and those high rises and high end real estate. It was all farmland. It was all cattle, and the only thing out there was the prison and a slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if I had a time machine and I could go back and buy property in that area, holy shit. I mean, what an investment that would have been.
Well, the
actually
church,
know a guy.
the church owns half of it.
Actually, Gary, Joe Spire, right? well, Gary, Joe Spire?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Spire's ex-father-in-law owned most of Lehigh. Old dude. And he's been slowly selling it off. And the guy is cool as shit. He has like a garage full of old Hemi Cudas. Oh. He wears leisure suits. And you wouldn't know, but his house, he has shag carpet like from the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
And he has carpet on his shelves. It's like a time machine. But the guy is just like, he's like a pimp from back in the day. He has a wet bar with like all of his liquor. And it has like the tufted leather. And I mean, it's just, every time I went to his house, I just felt like I was going back in time. He's just such a character. But anyway, sorry.
So to kind of continue on with Mike's plan, it's not necessarily just the facility. It's changing the name of baseball within the state of Utah to start with. Trying to eliminate this daddy ball thing. So the coaches they'd have to go through our training. So they're treating kids fairly across the board. They're educated on high school. They're educated on a recruiting process. Just trying to change the name of baseball in Utah. There's a toxic nature to it. Some will argue there's not, but that might be the problem. But it's just DBAT has a goal and a mission to change baseball back to what it was, the love of the game.
Well said. Well said. That's exactly right, and that's what we have for the sport as well. And like Gary said, daddy ball's gotten to the point where it's ridiculous. Like you'll see these organizations, and then dads don't like that their kids aren't playing, so they'll recruit 14 other kids, 12, 14 other kids to come play for their kids so their kid can pitch. Then he's wrecking his arm anyway because daddy's pitching him far too many pitches, too many days in a row. There's a lot of things within the youth game that need to change. Umpires as well. And the goal is to, for lack of a better term, help with all of that, control all of that. And we do have talent here. We really do. And it needs to be developed in a different manner. And that's really why I opened DBAT 6 years ago.
There's one key thing that I wanted to hit on. It's just been on my mind this entire week. Parents, especially the barking parents in the bleachers or the stands or next to the mat or the rugby, whatever the sport is, parents need to understand one thing. They are student athletes. We as coaches call them student athletes for a reason. You're a student first, you're an athlete second. And as a coach, you should be driving them to work on their education. When I do one-on-ones, I'm expensive. I'm more expensive than Myke. And when my kid shows up, they're once a month they have to turn in their grades. If they're lacking in grades, their parents are now paying anywhere between my young kids are $50 to $150 an hour. And if their grades suck, well, guess what? Your one-on-one lesson for 2 hours just turned into homework. Sit down. Now their parents are paying me $200 for their kid to do homework.
And we do that a lot. That's one of our first questions. How are your grades? Is your bed made? Are the dishes done? Are your chores done? Is the yard mowed? Right? Are you taking care of the things and your responsibilities as a son, a daughter, a student? And those, like Gary said, those things are all very important. And as a whole, like we've had this discussion, guys, that does contribute to you in your adult life, contributing, being motivated, right? And those things are all super important. And they're just not being taught that much anymore, unfortunately.
No. I'd throw in just a little plug. Taylor, have you, living down in Texas, have you heard of DBAT?
I think I've seen it before.
Okay.
Because when you guys said it, I was like, I swear, I know they have, I was looking on the map here, and it was like, there's one in Allen just down the street from me here.
Yep,
So
I know the owners. They're super awesome. Yep.
So for those that haven't heard of it, DBAT, is developing beliefs, attitudes, and traditions. That's pretty much the sum of the entire company mission.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of rolls into the coach's mentality, the player's mentality, and parents should be paying more attention to this than the players.
And we have signs all throughout DBAT, right? Like that one. DBAT's an acronym, and Gary just explained that. Developing beliefs, attitudes, and traditions. But we have signs throughout the facility that says, thank your parents, right? You wear your hat straight in this house. They're all just little lessons that we take as adults moving forward, as and as young adults. So those are all things that are important that add up.
So Myke, the reason why I mentioned that is part of our goals here in this conversation is, the historically the present, which is what we're talking about, and how it shapes societies.
Yes.
And that's, you asked about the project that we're on. That's really what we're on, is shaping the society differently to try and change this toxic nature, the daddy ball. And I say daddy ball, but you can relate that to any sport or skill, jiu-jitsu, tennis, this new paddleboard, or not paddleboard. What is that little hard ball everybody's hitting around now? Little tennis game.
Pickleball?
Pickleball.
Talking about badminton?
Badminton. No, pickleball. Like it applies to everything. Taylor mentioned
and I'm
earlier
glad you
about
bring that up, Gary, because it swings us around to a serious note. And I'm sorry to cut you off.
okay.
I'll bat the bird back to you. But it's important that every man in society, and woman for that matter, but men as fathers, need to give direction and guidance to, and this goes back to what you were talking about with coaching, and keeping an eye on the people that you coach, their grades. Even though that you're making money off of coaching them, it's contingent on them paying special attention to their grades. And if their grades slip, then it reflects in your ability to be able to coach.
It does. I think Mike froze up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of fill in here. So he was talking about the parents and the men, the women, that they need to step up and teach them these lessons, get them more focused, teach them how to be an adult at an earlier age, right? What are coaches? Coaches.
They're father figures for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 100% where I'm going with this. Coaches, fathers and mother figures, depending on the sport or at whatever sport they're doing, they become the parent or mentor or brother, sister. Like, so when I was talking earlier about how student first, and you're going to sit down and do your studies instead of playing the sport because it's more important. It's that is the role that parents now have seen. Like, oh, I don't need to do it anymore. I'm paying for the coach.
No.
The coach can do it.
Wrong.
I've seen that time after time.
Absolutely.
Well, they do it with teachers too, and it's like you're going to trust somebody to raise your kid for you.
Yep. And that's they literally they think that way right now is, oh, well, I'm paying you $100 an hour, so you tell me student athlete, get after him about his studies because that's not my problem.
They'll dip out and go to Starbucks, right?
They will.
I mean,
they will.
It's crazy. Another example is my director of baseball operations, Ethan. He's a young kid. He's 22, just had a baby of his own. And he was doing a lesson last week, like I think it was Thursday. And it's his normal lesson. This kid comes to him a couple times a week. And his grandpa comes with them, and grandpa pays for the lessons. I've known them since we opened the facility, right? Kid's probably 12 years old now. He was probably 7 or 8 maybe when he started coming in. But he's a good kid. But this particular day, he was completely unfocused. He wasn't listening to Ethan. And so Ethan literally brings him in my office and he's like, let's go into the dugout, right? So brings him into my office. And when Ethan does that, I automatically know that the kid's got his head wrapped around the axle on something. And so I put him on the couch and I said, hey, bud, I was out. I was watching you pitch. You're completely unfocused. You're in a bad mood. You're not listening. What's going on? This is not like you. Because he's a baller. He wants to learn. He wants to be there. He's made leaps and bounds since, Ethan has been working with him. And he's like, well, my grandpa pissed me off today. And so I'm like, look, that's going to happen. But you can't, here's a great life lesson. And here's a lesson, that you can implement in the game. You can't let that rattle you. Your grandpa loves you. Your grandpa brings you in 2-3 times a week and pays for your lessons. He wants to see you succeed. I heard him out there, and I know he's on your case a little bit, but you got to focus. And Ethan's sitting there shaking his head, right? And so I turned this whole conversation around about making it about being strong mentally. No matter what's going on in your life, you need to focus, be it your lesson right now, or be it homework, or be it your home life, or your relationship with your grandpa. And he went back out for the second half of his lesson. And I asked Ethan how it went when he got back, and said, dude, you're awesome. He focused. He was great. His grandpa came over to me and just looked at me and went, yep. So it's those things that you've got to do with these kids, and like I said, I'll reiterate it again. They're life lessons, and they're going to carry you, into your future and as adults, that you got to do these things. Your boss rattles you, right? You've still got to focus. You got a job to do.
And in shaping our society is
real quick. Sorry, I want to cut you guys off. Taylor, if you got to go, I know that we've gone over. If any of you guys got to go, we're at about 20 minutes over. But I kind of want to keep this going. Anyone who wants to stay, but I just want to give the opportunity for people to exit if they need to get going. I know Taylor's in a different time zone.
Yeah, I got to get going here in a few minutes, but I want to add something you guys could talk about, and that is, when growing up, one of the things that I experienced was individual sports and team sports are very different. In individual sports, you don't get politics. They don't exist, because you go out and compete and you lose, it's on you. There's no one to blame. And so one of the good things of doing individual sports is you get that, well, I can't point the finger at anybody but myself when I lose.
Yes.
The hard
That's
part,
why I love it.
Yeah. But then at the flip side, when you don't learn how to work with other people, like team sports build that aspect of a person, which is,
then you end up living in the woods in a cabin.
Yes, exactly. Or like me, you end up owning your own business because you can't work for anybody. Like,
and that's the only way I can work.
Yeah.
Is honestly somebody that's willing to let me work. Like says, you do your thing, or I have to work for myself.
Yeah. But that's the thing is like, you have to learn how to develop also working in those environments where, hey, they're going to put that guy out there. Probably is not the best person to be out there, but the other people have to make up for him. And that's the thing. That's the hard thing about team sports is like the other kids know when the best player isn't playing. And if you're a coach and you're doing that stuff, you're telling the rest of the team, hey, we don't pay the best person here. We pay this kid because his dad's the coach, or so-and-so is his friend or whatever. And I remember as a kid, one of my friends, I'll still remember this day. They put another kid in to play my position, and my friend said, "Why isn't Taylor playing?" And he goes, "Well, we're playing this kid this play." And he goes, "Well, I'm not playing then." And he just got up and he walked off the field. And I was playing 2 plays later because he refused. And like, I always remember that as like what my friend did for me right there. He stood up for me in a way that nobody else on the team would. And it's always been like this thing of me going, wow, that kid, the balls to look the coach in the face and say, well, I'm not going to play if he's not playing, because he knew I was the best person for the position, but another kid was getting it. And so team sports are far more complex than that. And I think kids need to play them because they have to experience that and they have to learn that. But they also need to learn, because you get the kid that thinks he's the best. It's like, go play an individual sport and see how hard you really have to work to be the best.
That being said, it's absolutely true. You have to learn how to work as a team, right? Because you've got, baseball, for example, you've got, the infield, the outfield. You need to learn how to communicate, right? And that is important. And that's one of my pet peeves too. And I'm sure, we touched on this, Gary and I, but as a coach, everybody needs a chance to play and get better. But you reward the people that are out there working every day, doing their best, play the positions, communicate with the other players correctly and efficiently, because that's how games are won, right? That being said, do I believe that there is no I in team, but there is an M and an E, right?
My favorite saying. 'Cause in the military, they always use that term. There's no I in team. I'm like, but there's a me.
It's true. I mean, you've got to work
Well,
as
'cause
a team, but
I'm the king. I'm the king of individual sports. Like I said, backcountry skiing, skydiving, rock climbing. Anything that to where I can push my personal limits, and I'm competing against myself. 100%. I'm 100% in.
Okay, so
and,
as it,
and I do
Never
that on
grew me
and you
because
do
I
that on
never
a personal
felt
level
that.
still as a team, right? You still want to be the best second baseman you can be, the best shortstop you can be, the best hitter you can be, because ultimately that does contribute to the team. But work hard, play hard, enjoy what you do. I mean, the Dodgers are out there because they were like, fuck it. We're going to go out. We're going to play. We're going to come up with this great strategy of pitching our entire bullpen the entire game, and we're going to win. But we're going to have fun. And if you're not having fun, as we talked about earlier, Myke, right?
Yeah.
Find your niche. Go do what makes you happy, what you enjoy, and what you can excel at.
so I can
My
argue on.
problem is without adrenaline, and I can't do the politics. So if there's not adrenaline involved, it's just not my thing. So I mean, that was just me. That's just how I'm wired.
If you're not killing someone, it's just not Mike's thing. All right.
Yes!
Let's go. Or there's has to be a threat of death at some point. And
mostly my
sounds fun.
It's like my life has to be on the line for me to be excited about something, and I'm not even joking. Like adrenaline is legitimately a drug, and it's addictive because I mean, it's really hard to get an adrenaline rush, and that really is what fuels me. Like, I don't do a lot of rock climbing anymore. I don't do a lot of skydiving just because of that reason. It's just that adrenaline rush. I just don't really get that anymore, and without that, it doesn't drive me.
So that cover the there's no I in team, but there's an M and an E, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the capital letter A, take the center of the A and the dot in the middle, that's an I. But there's also an M and an E. So I use this as a coach. So there's no I in team, but there's an M and an E. So what
You're
does
reaching, brother.
What
You're
does
reaching.
me mean? So there is a me in team. So what does that mean to you as a player in any sport, individually or team? How can I improve me? What does this sport mean to me? How is this going to support me in my future?
And honestly, that's what's important is sports. And let's treat this as kind of just the end of the podcast because I know it's getting late for you guys. But and I want to give Gary an opportunity to finish his train of thought. But that is a very good point to end on. Sports teaches key aspects of personal development that prepares young men and women for life in general. Working in teams, being humble, being able to identify their strengths, utilize those strengths, I know their weaknesses, and be able to find teammates that shore up those weaknesses and leadership qualities. There's a lot of things that men and women out there, young men and women, can use team sports for and sports in general to prepare them for life's journey and being able to tackle this, the struggles and the hurdles and being able to excel and move above their peers, if that makes sense.
It does.
There was a thing about Kill Tony on the comment section. I just want to put it out to Crypto Breezy that I went to Kill Tony in Vegas. It was absolutely epic.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
funny.
And but there was one part I will tell you, they have not released Kill Tony Vegas. And I think there's a reason, because there was a joke said that was so bad. Like my wife's jaw was to the floor, and every woman in the audience was like, "What the fuck?"
Did he just say that?
It was like I've never been offended about what a comedian joke, but the joke that they said was so bad that I was like, I've never experienced this before in my life, and it was so awkward. But so it was a great experience, and I'm still shocked from what that joke was, and I'm not going to say it because it would probably ruin that comedian's career if it ever got out what he said. But but
honestly, I miss that comedy. I miss the Richard Pryor, the Eddie Murphy.
Oh, this was something that there's a line you never cross. This is like so bad that you would be like, wow, I can't believe.
Honestly, there should be
I
no
want to hear it
comedy.
offline. I definitely want to hear it offline because now I'm curious.
Are we like we're talking farther than Andrew Dice Clay?
Honestly, though, comedy is that icebreaker. You know, that societal, and maybe we need to have an episode on this.
Yeah.
But it's that societal icebreaker that it's almost the socially, or it should be, it used to be, the socially acceptable place where things could be said and everyone could laugh about it. You know, different genders, different races, different political views, whatever. And we could all come together and laugh about it. And we've lost that. But
Yes.
I won't get on a rabbit trail. Maybe that's another episode.
Yeah, it's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to go down that thing, but Kill Tony's great.
No. That's awesome. So before we go, our next episode next Sunday is going to be about natural remedies, and the evolution of going from natural remedies to modern pharmaceuticals and modern medicine, and this more modern or recent movement to get back to natural remedies. Gary, last we talked, we have a special forces medic who might be on the show that's willing to speak on this topic. Is that still the case?
It is still the case as of right now. He wasn't just a medic. He's also a green hat, like you said, the 18 series teams guy.
That's the special forces medic, Gary.
Yeah, he has been all over the world. And he is by far one of the most educated people that I've met, medically speaking. And I've blown through doctors. If you know me at all, I've blown through doctors.
I can vouch for that.
Yes. And so we're going to have him on. I really want to touch on, the use of medicinal plants, including marijuana. I know it's a controversial topic.
You're not doing it for medicine. Mushroom. You're not doing it for medicine, Michael.
Hey, you shut your whore mouth.
You're in a lot of pain all the time.
Yes, I am in pain, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about psilocybin and the use for PTSD, and a lot of other aspects of natural remedies that are starting.
Uh-oh. Okay, that's what you get for living in the woods, Myke.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Statements, and we'll go ahead and close this out. I know it's getting late.
Yeah, I think we just need to close it out, Myke. You're just going to keep talking if we keep going back to you.
And you're freezing.
There we go,
boys.
All right,
3-0 Dodgers. Let's go.
Hey, let's go around the horn real quick and close this out. Taylor, closing thoughts.
Nothing. We're done. I'm done.
All right, Gary.
I'm ready for bed.
All right, Gary.
My closing thought is when you're molding your players, your athletes, try and instill into their head that if football or baseball or rugby is their sport of choice, as they're growing throughout their youth years, try not to focus on that sport. If it's not that season, I try to get them to do something different. And I did that with my son. And kind of the reason why I did what I did behind me was for this very comment is my son is so good at baseball. He's like, I got to improve, but I can't. I gave him regimens and nutrition plans. I gave him all sorts of things. And he says, well, how do I improve? I need to build my strength. I need to build my swing ability. So the very top picture right there, he did 2.5 years of wrestling to build strength right before he went to college. And he had never hit a home run. And because I told him, you need to play other sports, you need to expand, he hit his first home run at college.
It's why MMA.
So don't focus on one sport. You're gonna destroy them. You're gonna destroy their mindset. They're gonna get frustrated because they're not seeing improvement. So give them the opportunity to expand their personal mind. This is a whole nother class, but I have a mind class, a mental health class. And one of the key points there is focus on the things that you can control, nothing on what you cannot control. And if you're focused on one sport for life, you're focused on a whole lot of things that you can't control.
Myke, you're up.
That's a valid point. First of all, guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And Gary's right. I think that, my take on all this would be, all the things we've talked about. Be a son, be a father, be an athlete, be a student. Do all these things that are going to contribute to society. Right? Build you as a whole. So when you are an adult, and like me, you don't cut that 1% and get to play that sport like you wanted to, and you dreamed about since the time you were 7 years old, you have life skills. And like we've talked about, that's what sports does for these kids. Don't sit in front of your phone. Don't sit, in front of your computer playing video games. Go out, contribute to society. Get good grades, interact with your friends, your peers, and live.
Oh man,
Absolutely.
Crypto Breezy, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. That's really what Myke and I are trying to do in the areas that we can control. Is just trying to make a change and make a positive spin on athletes.
So, make sure that if you guys have a website, once you guys, get your facility up and going, you have a website, go ahead and get that to me so I can put that and link that. My closing thoughts is basically next week, we're going to be talking with the doc, and Nicole, you and a couple other people asked about mental and physical illnesses. That's what the topic's going to be about. There is a serious issue with physical illnesses, cancers, huge amount of autism and other illnesses, and then also mental illness. These school shootings and other societal issues that we're having. We didn't have those, even a decade or two ago. Let alone when I was in school. Back in the 1900s, we
weren't allowed to have mental issues back then.
No,
Right.
But there's definitely been a change in our society, and it's important to recognize that and address the root issue. And me personally, I am not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, and that's why I'm really hoping that the doc can make it. Is I want to talk about the over prescribing of prescription medications and the additives and the processing of our foods and the effect generationally of of those things on on humans. And so that's all I have. But with that, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Myke. And Veteran Crypto out.
I'll see ya.
And be a good human.
Be a good human.